And hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Sally Eves, and we're here live at Splunk conf22. And it's an amazing company, amazing event. I think you can see all behind us here, great energy and great community. And community is part of our topic area for today, really looking at all things social impact, and in particular, looking at how to address the data divide. And I'm in the best company to do so. So I'm with Chris Delmeyer, who is Global Chief or Social Impact Officer for Splunk inaugural role. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. And Sally, I just want to say I am so glad to have you as the interviewer.
Awesome.
And for the audience here, if you want to check out Sally's LinkedIn, I got tired by the time I finished, but her contributions to impact and data and AI is extraordinary. So thrilled to be here with you.
Thank you. That's incredibly kind. And likewise, your work for years has been amazing. So sustained commitment to social impact is the way to go, isn't it? Brilliant. Yeah. And I kind of introduced it. Your role, inaugural role at Splunk, really is setting a leadership statement, I would say. Can you say a bit more about what that role involves and how, as an organization, you're contributing to global social impact at scale?
Yeah. No, thanks. Great question. And I just want to, give Splunk credit for having a Chief Social Impact Officer. It's a big commitment. Yep. And, Splunk's mission is to bring data to action so that everyone thrives in the data age, right? Super important. And so for global impact, we have set a very forward-thinking mission to bridge the data divide, to find actionable solutions for humanity's greatest challenges. And what we find with data is the power of data to really help solve those challenges. And we're really at the forefront of bridging this data divide. And so to be here at Conf and get our partners and our customers on the bandwagon to participate as technologists, to participate as other companies, because we're not going to solve this. Splunk's not going to solve this ourselves. We're going to catalyze and mobilize others to join.
Exactly. I think if you think about COVID, for example, that was such a negative contagion. Let's change that around and contagion a positive change for social impact. It takes the ecosystem, doesn't it? So I couldn't agree more strongly. And also, if everybody watching as well, take a look at Splunk's global impact page.
Yeah.
It's awesome. There's a pledge. There's very transparent metrics around ESG, global giving. It's really impressive. So it's right across that ESG mix, I would say.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah, the global, click on the global impact report on the web page. We haven't quite got the whole web page updated, but it's all in there in Splunk's first global impact
Fantastic. Report. So one of the things I know we both care about is how you can create data value. So data to doing very, very much kind of a leadership area for Splunk, I would say as well. Personally, one of the things with my nonprofit, with Aspirational Futures, one example of that would be data waste. So for example, it's something like 90% of data archived after 3 months, not touched again. How can we use that as like a training aid for reskilling and upskilling? So that's one personal example that I'm involved in. I'd love to hear from you about examples, but in particular, the data divide. What is it? Because again, it's kind of used interchangeably, isn't it?
It's new, yeah. I would say most people are familiar with the digital divide, right? Late 90s, and that was when the beginning of the internet, access to communication technology, right? We've made progress on that, still a long way to go. Now we have on top of that data, right? And it is growing exponentially. And the data divide is the increasing gap between the expanding use of data for commercial value, which is but the weak use of data to solve our social and environmental challenges. So bridging this data divide is about bringing that power of data both in civilian government, to nonprofits, and also even with companies that have, for example, environmental data. Right? It's about their investment choice to now have action with that. So it's not just a nonprofit, it's about all of us participating to make sure that when we're thinking of data and solving our challenges, we're data forward, we're bringing the talent, the resources, and everything to bear.
That's amazing. I think for me, it's that shared value business proposition. I think the metrics you mentioned there are a great example of that, in the sense that I think sometimes, cloud, for example, we might measure cloud waste, we have the dashboards around that, but consumption and energy, we have it somewhere completely separately. So let's integrate it, make it visible, make it part of everyday operations. So I love that. I think it's fantastic. And again, talking about the community we've got here, one of the things I've loved seeing is a lot of the global impact partners. I think doing an amazing job. And I'd love to kind of showcase a little bit some of those organizations, what they're doing and the impact they're making, and how, again, we've got that community coming together.
I'll just highlight a few because there's so many of those. So one is Generation, which is is workforce development that is a global organization that is working with disadvantaged populations to bring them into data-forward, tech-enabled jobs. And so one of the things that Splunk does is for nonprofits is donate our product to get people trained. And if you look at jobs reports, like jobs of the future, almost all jobs have an element of data. So if you want to get into a middle-class career, this is one way to go. So Generation is great.
Fantastic.
The other organization I love, I was just with Lauren, in Davos, is data.org.
Awesome.
And within the nonprofit sector, it is behind, they don't have the access to data. We don't invest in their capacity to be data forward. And we're going to get better outcomes if we do that. And I'll just side note, nobody should care this, funding only direct programs makes no sense because we should be funding, data. And then there's that whole capacity piece and then, investment choice. So data.org is really one of the leading nonprofits that is like working to build data forward organizations, in partnership with a lot of us to do that. And then I'd say the third one we did a session on today is called LC Wins. And it's women for national security, which I'm not going to, but it is under 20%.
Yes.
And really building that field out. And what we did with them, they're a new organization that is about matching, and they're trying to grow globally. But they have like these resumes, and literally they were looking through them. And so we put them on Splunk, built an app for them that they get a request in that says, I need somebody who speaks Spanish, who's done this. And they can do that and run it through Splunk, and what used to take hours now takes minutes. And it was also nice with LC Wins to get in early as they're continuing to grow instead of, as you know, backing up and cleaning up all that data.
Exactly, I love that. I spotted also Retrain AI.
Yeah,
and I love that as well. I thought that was amazing in terms of kind of that personalized look at what career areas, where the opportunity, where AI might take away roles, but where it can create them, where those gaps are, but where those reskilling opportunities as well. So take a negative, make it into a positive, make it a true enabler. I love that.
Yeah, and just to add on to that with Retrain AI, I think one of the things that's also great about Splunk, we have our pledge, which is for the nonprofit and academic, and then we also have a $50 million impact investing fund for social purpose businesses, which is where Retrain AI comes in, and met with one of their co-founders earlier yesterday, and just an inspiration. So I think it reflects, again, it's just not the nonprofit sector. Continue to work with government, and also these for-purpose companies have a really significant role to play.
I love that as well. I also love as well kind of drawing on some other conversations, not just focusing on the tech, but the culture, shared responsibility, and skills, and kind of like that holistic skills mix I like to talk about, and kind of from STEM to STEAM. And my personal bias acknowledged on that front, but I think it's hugely important, that tech confidence, but also your creativity, your emotional intelligence and empathy. Bring all those things together. That's how you can really catalyze change, isn't it? So I love how we're mixing all those things together as well. And you briefly touched on it earlier about WEF. And you were chairing and paneling around responsible AI for social gains, weren't you, as part of that amazing event at Davos? So obviously very recently. Can we share a bit more about that event? So, real standpoint leadership one, but your panel in particular, a lot of key insights and takeaways from there. So perhaps we could share a few little nuggets.
So this was my first time to WEF's annual meeting. I was actually glad to be there in May and not in the snow, a lot of walking. And as you mentioned, what actually at two personal moments, and meeting the panelists was one of my highlights, and getting to go deep with them. And just to give kind of that highlight, Stuart Russell, professor at Berkeley, human-centered AI, and he's written, the most read textbook on AI, and his commitment to do well in the world was just inspiring. Veloz Dar, so we had kind of academia, and then Veloz runs the Patrick McGovern Foundation. They are the leading private foundation driving for data and tech and AI change. One of them. There's always more. And then Joanna Shields, I could spend days with her, and she's like, oh, I founded a company in the 80s, and then I was at Facebook, and now she's the CEO of Benevolent AI, because she learned what happens if you don't take ethics seriously.
Exactly.
And then Al Obama Sultan, who is the ministry in the United Arab Emirates, who again, from a government level, is taking a step forward. So the panelists, great perspectives, really inspiring.
Oh, I love that. I saw some footage of it as well. And I love the fact it was also changing the narrative around AI as well. So, contribution to the different SDGs. And, I think it's really interesting that people are now, the adoptability obviously is increasing, but people are using it in different ways.
Yes.
And mental health, I think, is an absolutely critical area.
Yes.
And I was reading the other day, people being more comfortable, for example, for the first time ever, engaging in conversational AI as their first starting point to talk about how they're really feeling. So again, those points coming through, I think it's so important to get that balance right.
Yeah. And I think what was, some of the key takeaways there.
Yep.
Is, Stuart was really clear. We do need, and what he said is precision regulation.
Yes.
Absolutely. And that was we can't just have theory and principles. And if we, again, it's so early, if we address it now, the power of the upside of AI is huge. Vilas talked about each and every one of us, we have to get step in the table because it's our data and our ownership, and we need to be owners of that. That was also great. And Joanna's, one of her key takeaways was no one company should own the metaverse. Very it's like we're moving to this next phase.
Yep.
Let's think about the public. Yep. Let's think about trust. Let's think about all of those important things. And then Omar was also talking about the role of government, which we just need to have a seat at the table.
Exactly. In fact, I was going to ask you that next, funnily enough, about the global or the government position. Were there any extra takeaways around that particular area? Because you're right, I think it's that intersection, different sectors coming together, but there's the geographical aspects as well. It's a huge challenge, but we've done it before with things like the HPC consortium. We've shown how we can come together. So I think there's possibilities.
I would say from a government perspective, it's about choice.
Yes. Yep.
So I can speak, obviously, I know the U.S. a little bit better. In certain departments, they've made a choice to be data forward.
Yes. Yep.
And I keep thinking, what if we brought that choice to Department of Education, Health and Human Services, Office of Refugee Resettlement, that I think our elected officials need some education.
Yes.
Again, democracy is great. It doesn't quite move as fast as sometimes we would like it to. And therefore, I do think but then you see a small country like the UAE who has a minister of this.
Absolutely, yeah. And
so
very
it's a
diverse
choice.
Panel around the setup of that as well. Really good example, yeah.
And
absolutely.
I think for these, big countries like ours, in a data-forward world, these smaller countries are going to take the lead.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
So, we have work to do, but the path is, clear.
Absolutely. And again, it's that trajectory of coming together, that ecosystem change. I mentioned HPC Consortium because I love that example because it's biggest 11 tech companies in the world, citizen scientists, academia, individuals as well, but also like local governments as well. It really was that cross-sector coming together, all barriers put aside. It was collaboration, it was co-creativity, all for a central goal, which was the vaccine intervention at the time. Let's apply that to the other SDGs and sustainability and other things. We can do it, can't we? Yeah, that's my kind of thinking on that one. And, And for the audience as well about trust, because you mentioned trust. Research out about 4 weeks ago, Swiss Re kind of with the underpinning of it, but it's really fascinating. And what you were saying about regulation and the consequences of that, some really good nuggets in that as well. So as a little follow-up, I'd recommend having a look at that too.
Okay, yeah, well, we'll maybe put the links of that, we'll put the links of the talk.
Yes.
And I will say it's moving so fast.
Yes,
that
absolutely.
We are kind of dependent on the folks like yourself to curate for the rest of us.
Absolutely.
So,
bring all that together. No problem at all.
Yeah.
And perhaps, I know we're getting short on time now, but perhaps we could do, given where we are with all the highlights literally all around us at the moment, being back in person, the real joy of that, first time for Splunk since 2019, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's pretty amazing, I would say. What's your kind of key takeaway from the event itself?
Yeah. Are we at the...
I think so.
Okay. So a couple, I'm going to do 2 levels of takeaway.
Yep.
Okay, so I think we're okay. So we'll do our early version of takeaway from the Splunk conference, and then we'll maybe wrap up later around kind of the data divide.
Perfect.
So I'd say from the Splunk conference standpoint, people want to be together.
Yes, exactly.
And there is nothing that can replace a 3D hug, a relationship, and all those pieces that bring community and bring solving problems together. And so from a global impact standpoint, it has been great. Every customer I've met, every partner, every co-sponsor, I'm like, oh, I'm Global Impact. Amazing. What are you doing? And I'm like, they're emailing me, well, here's what we're doing at MasterCard. Here's what we're doing. I think the challenge is going to be for me following up with everybody. But I think it's a testament to this community that is so passionate about Splunk. I will say a lot of people want to show me code, and I'm like, okay, let's bring that into Global Impact, and their commitment of wanting businesses to play a role there. And so I think that has been fabulous. The gracious generosity. I will say I did the McLaren little driving, which we know where we analyze all their data. Fantastic. I don't know if somebody wants to watch my driving data. I think I might have won with the most accidents of getting around the track.
Relative metrics, I love it.
I'm sure they've got the metrics. I'm like figuring out what to do there. So there were just so many pieces about .conf. I would say just even the opening keynote, the dancers were phenomenal, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I wish I knew their name right now. They were stunning. And so just upside all the way. I think it was a really energy booster, both for Global Impact, for Splunk, and everybody here.
Absolutely, and one of the moments for me as well, I was doing like a bit of an impromptu interview with a lovely guy called Tony, and he had one of the fezzes on.
Oh, the fezzes.
And all up his jumper effectively were all the different badges of all the different comps he's been to, and it was that collection over time. But also the fez itself and what that symbolizes. I love the fact, you can't go and buy that from a shop. It's not merch. You earn that, and it's all about that giving back and sharing of knowledge over a long period of time, and the pride of wearing that as well. I love that.
Yes.
I thought that was awesome.
Oh, they're serious. Their booth is next to the Global Impact booth. And again, generous. People have been coming over. How can we help? And all that. So,
Perfect. And again, it's that combination of investing in technology, but investing in people, and culture and skills and process. And it's all those things being integrated. That's how you get the best results, isn't it? Which is wonderful to see. And perhaps at this moment, I could pass it over to you for some final thoughts, going back to the more data divide.
The data divide, I'd say there's two key ones right now. One is a sense of urgency, and we need to act now. The tidal wave of data is here. And this data divide is at the early stages. It's kind of like where we were 20 years ago with climate. And if we would have acted faster, more quickly, and more deeply there, we might not be at the edge of the cliff. And therefore, mobilizing others to join, bridging this data divide with their talent and their resources is important. I would say, secondly, let's not let perfection get in the way of progress.
Yes.
I believe in AI ethics and all that, but we get in these camps and you can't make progress. And we've got to be able to bring these big data sets together to solve climate and healthcare at scale. And the potential's there. I see it in Splunk in these other ways, and therefore we need to do that. So I would say those, and everybody who's listening, you are part of the solution. It's your data. Step up and act to be part of the solutions of solving our global challenges. And then the last thing, I want to bring in a special guest today. Where are they coming from? Somebody specifically for you, Sally.
Okay.
I think
Hello.
I think you know this person, so I'm going to let him scooty in because I think he's got something to say.
That's really lovely.
Thank you for the power of Splunk. There's very few videos of us together.
That's true.
And I've arranged for us to do a bit of a wrap up to the camera.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Go with it. Yeah. Absolutely. I thought you were up to something. Yeah. There you go.
Thanks to Splunk and Meg for making this all happen.
Okay.
Yeah, so let's do the wrap up. How
Okay.
have you found the last couple of days?
Okay, well, amazing community, like we were talking about there, power of community, I would say would be absolutely number one. Shared values, so impact for business, but impact for society. And it's all about the people. I mean, you can see it all around us. It's absolutely amazing. So purpose would be for
Forever
me.
the professional. Come here.
Right.
You're going to come with me.
Okay. Where am I coming? Okay.
Now,
thank you.
I know.
Right.
I know that.
Yes.
I'm going to.
You're really going to. That's really beautiful. Thank you. Thank you.
Will you marry me?
Yes, I'll be delighted to. Thank you very much. Oh gosh, go on then. Pop it on there.
You're shaking.
I am shaking, yeah, because I wasn't sure what was happening there. Come in. Yay! Thank you. Can't believe you did that. That's awesome. Thank you. Come here. Thank you.
And thank you.
Thank you. My God.
I tried to keep it a secret.
Whoa.
But I thought you might have known.
I wasn't sure. I thought you were up to something, but I wasn't quite sure what it was, and then you threw me with that bit there. Wow, thank you. Wow. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I don't know what to say for once. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Wow, that's beautiful. Come here.